All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to head and create a new file called main.py. And inside of main.py, I'm going to import all of our required libraries. So first we're going to import TensorFlow, of course, as TF. We are going to import CV2. This is the OpenCV library, which we may be using later. Import matplotlib.pyplot as plot. Import numpy as np. We'll import, or we'll say from image, from pill. Sorry, import image. We'll be using the image object from the pill library. We could import the whole pill library if we wanted to. Import pathlib, which is a nice library that we can use for parsing directories. So that's what we'll get started with. Now let me also say we're going to be running right out of this file, and we're going to be trying to consolidate our code into like functions. So first thing I want to do is I want to create an if statement, if underscore underscore name equals underscore underscore main. Let's say pass for right now. This way we can put all of our execution down here, and we can build the library, build the functions up top here. So let's run this and make sure that you've got all of those libraries installed. If you don't, you'll get an error. And also, you're going to see that I'm getting some gobbledygook out of TensorFlow. And one of the reasons that this is when I run this in code, it doesn't actually have all the path variables that it needs for my system. So in my ZSH config file, I have some path variables specified. So if you're seeing those errors, but you think that stuff's installed, make sure that the path variables to your system are correct. Now I could run export and put those variables in every time, but I'm not going to be running directly from Visual Studio Code just to avoid that. I'll just be running Python main.py, and that will let me execute, and you'll see here that it'll import TensorFlow, but I won't get that error. And the only reason is, again, because of those path variables. So if you're having that problem, you can take a look at that. Let me just show you real quick. So this is my config file, and you can see that I have some paths specified here. So that's all that is. Okay. So now let's get started by parsing our images, which are stored in these folders. We have, thousands of images. We want to be able to start parsing those directories and finding the images easily and appropriately. So we're going to get started with pathlib. Okay, so we want to use pathlib to create essentially a path object of our directory. So the first thing we'll do is we will define a variable called of the folder containing our images. So we'll do that in our main function, since we'll be using this to drive the program, and we'll define functions up here. So we're going to define a function called load images, and it's going to take a path, and we'll just put pass for now. So what we want to do is we want to define our hard-coded file path for right now here. So we'll say our file path is equal to, and I'm going to use the path that has all of my images. Yours will be different, so make sure you get your exact path on your machine. So mine's at home, Frank, toot, flowers. So yours is going to be different, so put the path in there. And then we're going to pass that into this function. So what we want to do is we want to take this path, and we want to create from it a path object using the pathlib library. So we're going to call this data-dir, which is our data directory. It's going to be pathlib.path, and we'll put in our path. And this is a path object from the pathlib library. And what we can do is we can return this, and that's what we're going to basically be using for a lot of our functions. But the reason I like to have a separate little function here is we may want to add other things. So we may want to add, like for example, we might want to print loading images. And then what we'll do is, let's say we want to return how many images are found in that directory. That's kind of useful. What we could say is our image count is equal to let's see here, it's our data_dir.glob. So we're going to use the glob function here. And this is going to search for objects that match a string and return that as an object that we can iterate over. So for example, in our case, we want to return all directories, so */ and then *.*. So basically it's going to be every directory, every file name, every file extension. So if you look at this, it's going to be all, so it'll find this star will correspond to all of our directories. This star will correspond to every file name, since they all obviously have a different name. And it looks like they're all .jpg, so we could put in .jpg. And the reason I'll do that is I actually have a license file here that we don't want to pull in. So this will pull in all the JPG images from all these directories. And it will create that, and we want to turn that into a Python list. So we're going to wrap that in list. That will give us a list. And then we want to calculate the length of that list so that we know how many objects exist. And then what we can do is we can say print, number of images found, and we could concatenate that into a string, something like that. So again, we could use this list in a lot of ways. If we wanted to iterate over all the images, image paths, we could iterate over that. So for example, just to demonstrate that, I might say first image is, and let's do, let me save the list here first. So we'll say image list equals this. And then we'll return the length of the list. So that way we're saving that as a list. And what we could do is we could say image list object 0. So let me just show you how that's going to look. This will make a little more sense when we run this. And then we'll call the function down here. So we'll say load images. This is going to return our data_dir. So we'll say data_dir equals load images. And we want to pass in our file path. There we go. And let's run this. This will start to make a little bit more sense. And I'm just going to run it from here, even though I get some errors. We can just ignore those for now. So you can see it says loading images like we thought it would do so. Let me move this down. And then it says the first image is, and then it gives the full path to that first image that was extracted from that list. So we could find that in here. So it's very useful if we wanted to iterate, not just for this program, but for any program you're working in. If you have a directory with lots of different types of files and you want to iterate over them and sort them, find images, find non-images, you can use this library to very quickly do that. So we could actually iterate over all of this by using an iterator or an index variable and access all those different images. So that's just to demonstrate how that works. And it looks like it found 3,670 images, so that looks good. So in total, we have 3,700 nearly images in total. In the next video, we're going to take this data, this path object, and we're going to use this to create our training set and our validation set. So that'll be in the next video.